But first, our own David Nazar joins us with the interesting 40-year history here in Southern California with the Vietnamese community. David.
It is interesting, Elizabeth and Rick. I mean, we're talking 40 years, and in those 40 years, Southern California's Vietnamese community has gone from a populace of political refugees to an immigrant district that's become an economic engine for the Southland. The epicenter of all of this, Orange County, where a generation of boat people have produced doctors, lawyers, pharmacists, real estate investors, entrepreneurs. Of course, though, while many Vietnamese struggled and are not a success story, Vietnamese-Americans now even sit on local city councils and at our state capitol. The Vietnamese-American journey is still a work in progress, and it's been a road well traveled. This is video of the last day of war in Vietnam during the Fall of Saigon. This film was shot by someone who literally swam for his life that day. He was one of 130,000 people swept from their homeland and brought 10,000 miles to our shores. These Vietnamese refugees were transplanted to a remote part of Camp Pendleton Marine Base, herded into tents and huts because the Marines only had 24 hours notice to prepare for the mass exodus. Well, over the next few years, there would be another exodus of sorts, this one out of Camp Pendleton and into Orange County, namely the city of Westminster. In the beginning, things were tough for the Vietnamese looking to call this new city their home. Kathy Bucco was the mayor of Westminster from 1980 to 1984. Bucco had a bird's eye view of the changing landscape in her city. This is the mayor being interviewed for a PBS documentary back in 1981.
We get lots of complaints, and I'm not denying that there aren't situations and tensions in the community. We're experiencing a tremendous change in our community, a whole new neighborhood, really.
Sometimes I'm jealous, you know, because I see them all driving around in new cars, and they seem to come into, we're renting in our neighborhood, and there was like 5 houses for sale this summer, and they all moved in.
By the mid-'80s, the Vietnamese community, now often referred to as Little Saigon, started booming, especially as the population increased dramatically. Almost everywhere you looked, there were new shops, businesses, and restaurants being built, and the Vietnamese were buying most of the homes for sale in Westminster. Yet their success was still met with resentment and animosity. Many residents were convinced their new neighbors were getting special services they weren't entitled to, things like grants, bank loans, and special residency status.
What about our people that have been here struggling?
Even though this was not true, these rumors were the source of much of the misunderstanding and resentment. Fast forward to today. Kathy Bucco is an iconic fixture in the Vietnamese community. Since her days as mayor, she's been doing property management in Westminster and now gives tours of Little Saigon, which she says should be referred to as Big Saigon. That's because there are anywhere from 300,000 to 400,000 Vietnamese living in Orange County, with the majority in Westminster and its surrounding cities like Garden Grove, Fountain Valley, and Huntington Beach.
Most of the people that had difficulty with this have gone. And so the people that have stayed, yes, there's still some resentment, there's still some feelings that maybe they've taken over the community, they've taken over the city, they've created this huge development of businesses here. But in my opinion, that's only good for a city. Little Saigon has absolutely become a tourist attraction. It's a destination for tourists. There's tour buses that come to Asian Garden Mall almost every day that come from all different countries and all different parts of the United States.
We are lucky to be blessed to come to this country.
Dr. Twin Nguyen was 11 years old when her family was airlifted out of Vietnam just a few days before the Fall of Saigon. 40 years later, Twin is still so appreciative of the freedom this country has given her. She still lives and works in Westminster's Little Saigon, running the chiropractic office her father proudly started back in the early 80s after putting himself through school. Now, Twin sees over 200 patients, and she even has her law degree. She says, like many Vietnamese, her family banded together, eventually buying a home, starting a business, getting an education, and then in her family's case, giving back, literally.
My family was on welfare. And the thing that I want to say is that when my dad graduated and passed the board the first time in 1981, he took my mom to the agency, social service agency, and asked, how much has my family been receiving the care or the supports? Because I want to pay it back. And he did. And that makes me very proud.
Actually, they have built a town among themselves. This is their place, their home away from home. They're good people. I truly love the Vietnamese community.
Now, if you really want a litmus test for how influential Little Saigon has become, just look at some of the local politicians in Westminster. 2 of the 5 city council members, including the elected mayor, are Vietnamese-American. In Garden Grove, 3 of the 5 council members the same, and in Fountain Valley, 1 council member. Rick and Elizabeth, I mean, have you ever seen such an evolution or a progression of an immigrant city? Amazing. Yeah.